I would now request the Honorable Minister to please say a few words to us and enlighten the industry as to what are the plans the government has today for skill development and entrepreneurship and, of course, the franchising industry at large. Sir, if I could please welcome you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ritu. Thank you, Gaurav, Mr. Shiv and Mr. Samudra, distinguished delegates. Well, it's all for Ritu that I come back to her every event she organizes, but it also happens to be a part of my activity which I have been dedicated by the Prime Minister to undertake. You see, for a while when I was, it's almost been a year, and the most important aspect is, for the first time in independent India, there's someone who thought there should be something called about skilling and the Ministry for Skilling and Entrepreneurship. It's not that skills and entrepreneurship and franchising has not been a part of the ecosystem here. It has been there for a while. But I must say that post-independence, in the metrics of skilling or entrepreneurship, or for that matter, the subsection which could be of franchising, why this activity which was given to me, why in particular? And if I have to rattle out some figures which will actually make you feel why we need, and I think it's a long chain of things which any franchisee group would require, is a skilled manpower to run the franchising. Now all this has been done in an abstract, and if I have to tell you the figures and compare it to the world where India stands today as far as skilling is concerned, if you look at United States of America, I believe that it's about 46% of the workforce is skilled. If you look at United Kingdom, it's about 68% of the workforce which is skilled. If you look at Germany, it's about 74% of the workforce which is skilled. If you look at Japan, it is about 80% of the workforce which is skilled. If you look at Korea, 96% of the workforce is skilled. And that means out of every 100 people, may not be very educated, but 96 people are such people who have the skills to get employed. Well, I'm sure I've been talking about it so often now that everyone in India knows what is the skill percentage in India. It's just meager about 3.5%. So that is one thing which possibly has been in the domain for a while. And the industry, because when you look at the GDP of a nation, we talk about services, you talk about industry, you talk about agriculture and allied services. And India, 60% of the GDP comes from the services sector, about good 25% comes from industry, out of which only 12.5% is manufacturing, and the rest is agriculture and allied services. Now, when you talk about these numbers, definitely when you talk about skilled manpower in the capital goods sector, which talks about manufacturing and creating wealth, goes in the industry or manufacturing. But when you talk about the real GDP, as far as India is concerned, 60% in the services. Now, when you talk about services, it is mostly could be a large part of it could be a franchisee also. And that is what we are talking about. And when we talk about a country like India, and all of us, majority of them, and even the foreign guests would realize that when you talk about India, you talk about a country with 1,260 million people. And that's the numbers which we talk. And when we have to appreciate the number what we have, and because not that I've been traveling very frequently, but I just compare the numbers to what we are and where we stand. And recently the Prime Minister organized the Indo-African Summit in India, where he sent an invite to 54 nations, countries across the world, the African countries, to come to India. And a personal invite was being extended by individual ministers in Government of India. And I had an opportunity to go to Seychelles. So when I talked about Seychelles, I thought, great destination, tourist destination, a big country. And when I landed there and went through the fact sheet given to me by the ambassador, and when I landed at the airport, I saw a 380 on the airport, and I saw a 330 in the airport and a 777 parked. So I said, it must be a big country, and there is a prime minister, there is a president, there is a whole cabinet, and the population of Seychelles is, can anyone guess here? 5 lakhs? Someone else? Oh, it's a beautiful destination. We are just 80,000 people there. So You see, even a country like that can build up it records the highest rate of growth there and higher per capita income. And we're talking about 1,260 million people. At the policy level, when we talk about training 500 million people, and that means 50 crore people, and the largest unorganized workforce in the world. So all these metrics, when you talk about, the biggest challenge what we face today is to integrate this entire workforce to the actual economy. And when I'm talking to Mr. Shiv, or when even any industrialist for that matter, this one integration is possibly requires a huge trained manpower. And when we talk about retail, let's not talk about construction, if I talk about retail, the skill gap which my ministry did says that about 1.6 million people in the next 5 years are required in retail sector. Now, all retail would come very close to the franchisee which you're talking about, whether it's Cafe Coffee Day, whether it's Domino Pizza, talk of the things, and even Pepsi for that matter. So, to create productivity, to create large workforce which can take care of the franchisee, which possibly after entrepreneurship, as a component of job creation, could be the largest one. And India is faced with the largest challenge of job creation, and that is one of the foremost challenges which the government is facing today to create jobs. We need resources for it. And you see, for 69 years in the country, we have spent a lot of money on education because everything is degree-based, certificate-based. And lakhs of crores may have been spent on education, but education is very important, we agree. But today, if we have to talk about in comparison to what actually education has given us and where the skilled workforce lies, today 17% of the engineering graduates in this country are unemployable. 15% of the management graduates in this country are unemployable. So we have talked about higher degree of education without linking them with skills of subordinate level. And as a result, both the manpower is actually underutilized. Now, all these figures I do say because the challenges in front of us when we talk about Make in India, when we talk about creating a country, is the skilled manpower, the skilled enterprise which has to be there and which falls short of any requirement. And when we say 69 years, entire work, entire effort, entire money has gone in educating people, and that matriculation or an intermediary or a graduate or a postgraduate. But for us, the slogan is very different today. For us, it's very simple that 12 years of school education is very important. 10 years of matriculation is very important. But 10 years of school education or 12 years of secondary education may not make you employable. But maybe 12 weeks of training with 12 years of school education will make you employable. And this is exactly what we are striving, and this is what the franchisee world over would require as a skilled manpower. And that is the simple process which we are doing. But unfortunately, the corporates across, and even if you look at, I interact with major corporates which who have been saying that we do not have a skilled manpower in this country to undertake the activities of. Now, industry has been talking about it, but when you come to the industry for a trained manpower, and if you ask them what kind of a trained manpower which you require, they actually would not be able to, even in the soft drink industry, if you talk between Pepsi and if you talk with Coke, the actual formation of a skilled manpower is not understood by each and everyone has his own assessment. So the biggest challenge for us in the government of India is to put skills in a structured format, to give a structure for anyone wanting to come from the industry and asking for a skilled manpower. And that is why for the first time in this country, and we have identified 6,500 job roles, 6,500 national occupation standards. So every activity, someone who comes and fixes up this flower vase, or someone who puts his microphone, or someone who fixes up the stage behind, or someone who carries a camera or positions this screen in front of me, these are all national occupation standards, standards for a job. Now, when I say national occupation standards, I've been asking the industry, do we understand all this language? All this language has been familiar across the world, in Europe, in Australia, in America for last 50, 60, 100 years. But we in India have missed, and over the years we know a carpenter or a plumber and simple, and that's all what we know. A binder and things like that, we do not know. And something called For the first time in Government of India, we have got that every skilling which has to take place for any enterprise, whether it's manufacturing, whether it is services, whether it's a franchisee, it has to be under a particular framework. And this framework is called the National Skills Qualification Framework. Now, this word must be sounding Greek to all of you. What is this National Skills Qualification Framework? But I can tell you, in 3 years from now, as a part of the cabinet decision, no enterprise whatsoever will have a legitimacy of business unless until the organization under skills for any enterprise is aligned to the National Skills Qualification Framework, which means that you have to have a framework which has been drawn from the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Labor, and a unified structure has been created under which we have the qualification pack. And when we say a qualification pack, would be the qualification pack which is outcome oriented. And I'm doing all this because all as a part of the industry should know that there is a structure in place today through the sector skill councils, which are industry driven bodies, to get those manpower required by the industry. And the industry tells that, look, for an A job or a B job or for a C job, I require this trained manpower, whether it is a customer agent or a retail agent or it is a welder, we require, and the industry tells. So this is the whole metrics. And for us, we have to understand that the industry has to align with the National Skills Qualification Framework for times to come, for the real manpower which is to be used by the industry to be under a structure of a recognizable training. And that is why we are trying to integrate skills with school education, to create the credit framework that from 9th to 12th, even if you are doing skills, you can migrate to an industry or you can come back from an industry, getting the skills of credit and come back and go for higher education. Now, all this, what we are talking, should have been happening in this country in a very easy and an understandable language for last 60 years, but unfortunately it did not happen. But nonetheless, we have begun with it, and I'm sure in times to come, we'll be able to give it a shape, and I'm very happy that both on the front of skilling, on entrepreneurship, and of course, as a sub-component of entrepreneurship, franchisee, and I can tell you, I have attended several conferences. But for the first time, what I found was most interesting, that franchisee as a subject has been taken up by you all to be discussed as a great employment creator is something which I had not actually imagined. So I must congratulate you, all of you, for that. But I believe, and the contents and the facts which I have, this is the way in future. This is the way entrepreneurs have to come across and build a franchise to carry on their trade and business and to carry out their products. And I'm sure I can rattle out many more small things to tell you about skilling. But this conference in itself, where the world, the globe has become so small as far as business is concerned, as the products are concerned, with connectivity, with internet, with websites and so forth and so on, you are there. And I wish all of you great success, but thank you very much for allowing me to come to this conference where I have to pick up some papers and see where is the linkage between skills, entrepreneurship and franchisee. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And I think I should thank you firstly for drawing this inference with franchising, with the skill development and entrepreneurship with franchising, which it always has. And I think thanks to all your efforts, the franchise industry, the restaurant industry, education industry are all going to have some great workforce, great talent, which is going to be actually the effort of all your ministry. So I would now request Mr. Samudra Bhattacharya, the Vice President of PepsiCo, to please extend a vote of thanks to the Minister.
Sir, thank you very much for making time today and coming down and talking to the audience about your vision of enabling entrepreneurship and the growth of skill in this country. We all understand that education makes us eligible for employment, but it is skilling which keeps us employed. It is the guarantee of employability beyond just getting employed, which education does. And franchise is a business that lends itself automatically to the development of new skills as the model progresses. India has long been a producer economy, and we realize that we are now moving into becoming a consumer economy, and towards this, the skills specifically needed would be in the areas of customer service, supply chain, communication, and each of these are areas that franchise lends itself to, entrepreneurship lends itself to very automatically. Prime Minister Modi, our Honorable Prime Minister, has spoken of the Make in India vision, and there he speaks of areas which will require for India to attract investment, become a lot more capable from a technology point of view, and finally skilling. And sir, I think on behalf of this audience here that's got together to talk of franchise, I'd just like you to know that we believe in your vision, and we are very sure that India is on its way, and franchise will play a role in the generation of employment and moving us ahead in that direction. Thank you once again, sir, for making time and coming over.